right, we could probably start to get things rolling. A few more people might end up joining, but welcome to our webinar on wholesale. I'm Lacey, the head of solutions at Toolio, and Chris is going to be taking you through the demo today. And we're going to be going into some of the wholesale best practices and how Toolio handles them. So Chris, if you could hit the next slide. Yep. So like I said, I'm the head of solutions at Toolio. So what that means on the sales side, I've met a bunch of you, and on the customer success side, I've met a few more. Supporting sales and customer success, taking my 10 years of experience and helping translate it to customers like yourselves get up and running on Toolio. A few housekeeping things for today. So if everyone could just put their questions in the Q&A section, include your company. Only we're going to see those questions, but that's just if you're from a particular company who is currently on Toolio or in the sales process. We'll make sure to address those questions with you individually, but then we'll also filter them out to Chris to answer throughout the process. We'll give a quick context and demonstration, followed by some time for questions, but as I mentioned, sprinkle those questions throughout. It'll be about 30 minutes of content today, so we should have you back to prepping for Black Friday around 1:40-ish. So our goal stays to show some common wholesale workflows and understand the metrics that we use at Toolio and how they can help you drive your wholesale business. Kicking it over to Chris.
Yeah, I'm Chris Conroy. I'm the VP of Planning here. 25 years in merchandise planning. And then, I work with the product branch here, as well as the customer success, as well as the sales team, just kind of trying to systematically use our workflows as planners and how do we get them into Toolio and, constantly be innovating and motivating new ways to do it. So I've been, I've worked with lots of systems. I know that, a lot of it's also always done in Excel. And when it comes to wholesale, you're sharing a lot of different information, depending on the account you're working with. So it can get pretty tricky. So we'll show you how within Toolio, how we manage that. So first we'll go in through the agenda, talking about some of the sell-in versus sell-out behavior, meaning with the accounts, bookings versus sales, account review and management, and margin dilution, all typical wholesale workflows. And then hopefully we'll get out of this how to review your bookings versus your shipments, Toolio metrics and how they handle the pricing across channels, sales growth versus margin dilution, and then in-season versus pre-season workflows. All right, and the last thing I wanted to quickly go through is, what is wholesale in general in the meaning of the planning context versus like a selling DTC. So wholesale is the sell-in, right? It's basically what you're selling to a retailer or a wholesaler, not the end customer. So in other words, selling the goods to those places in between that sell to the customer. So there's some good pros to that. We know you get customer reach, you get immediate revenue because when you ship, you have your net terms and they pay on that. Some more to talk about on that, obviously, as we go forward. Less overhead, having your own stores, store operations, payroll, things like that. And buying teams know what their customers want. So you get good information from your buying team at the retailer to let you know where you fit in the mix and what the customer is looking for. So some of the cons are having another point of view on how to present the assortment to an actual customer. Internally, you may have an idea of how you view your brand versus a retailer may have a different view. Brand placement and marketing. Depending on where you are on the floor and around other brands, that's always a negotiation and how to get up those tiers and levels, making sure you're in the right spot to help your brand and not typecast you in a certain way. And then shorter product margins. You kind of make up for that maybe with the overhead and the actual EBITDA, but the shorter product margins up front and also vendor agreements. And then just, again, really having full control of your brand. So people are weighing those pros and cons. I think obviously the pros probably outdo the cons in some aspects. And then for people who sell only DTC, they obviously favor themselves and how they want to present it versus having someone else's hands on it. Okay, so now that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now we'll go into the actual tool. I'm going to show you within Toolio some of the pieces we're doing here. So with wholesale planning, it can become pretty complex. I know that we're saying like, yeah, I'm just shipping it out and let them deal with it to the customer, but that's not how we behave, right? We want to make sure the end customer is also happy. So there's a lot of communication, a lot of partnership, and maybe not direct connect to every system that our retailer may be looking at. So it is a little bit, there is a more complexity to it in the sense of like what you're looking at in here versus DTC. DTC, you're constantly doing your analysis of your product. You have your immediate sales and you can go forever, dig as deep as you want. With wholesale, you're really adding another metric to that. You may not be getting as low of detail or by week or by day or hour marketing events and stuff like that. But it gets complex because you have different pricing structures. You have bookings versus your revenue versus how much you bought, right? So that's the whole complexity. It's like, are my bookings where I wanted my sales plan? And is my sales plan feeding my receipts that I have to buy? How much am I buying to the bookings versus how much am I buying to hold for at-once inventory? So in Toolio, you can see here I have a total company plan. Again, we can set you up. Actually, I can show you on here. We can have a multi-plan where you can have a merchandise plan where you're doing your product and your DTC and your wholesale plan in there, or you can separate them out and have like a whole merchandising thing. You're on different maybe calendars, different structures, and you want to keep them separate, but you can always reconcile between the two, just to give you some insight into that. Oops, sorry. So here I am. I want to go to my total company plan, and this is like the first stages, right? I'm managing what I think the plan will be. And what the total company, maybe I'm partnering with my finance teams on this so that I can see my total business and my revenue. So whatever I ship to the retailers versus whatever I sell to my customers on the DTC side. And you can see the blend of both. So you can see here, I'm filtered for a division, a category, and then in Toolio, we would manage here. I have my plan by month. I can then easily drill in to see my account type and what's in there. So I can see my accounts. I can see what my volume is there and all the comparables and planning. And if you've been to any of our other webinars or want more information on how the actual planning and all the components are, there's tons of information we have in our help center as well. So you can plan your individuals. But what I really wanted to show with this is the fact that, your channel mix is going to also be a huge factor on your margin and your pricing. So how does Toolio handle that? Is gross sales AIR. It's your average initial retail. Your stores will be obviously how your ticket price is and weighted average rolling up. But your wholesale, under the same metric, will bring in how you sell it to wholesale. So we can manage your pricing structure different by account so that when we roll up to your gross sales revenue, we have an accurate picture where you're not having to sum up different metrics. It's doing it based on the channel, even by account or off price, all that stuff. So we can handle that by attributing on a location table or during configuration. And you can also amend it, which I'll show you at the later on in the presentation of how you can even increase, change pricing, change costing for a certain date going forward. So based on my product mix here, now I can go down and see like what my actual erosion is on my margin. So overall, my weighted IMU is rolling up to 59.75 here. And my gross sales margin is going down by about 300 basis points and change to a 56. And again, that's mostly due to the fact that my stores and my e-commerce are IMUing at a 73, but at wholesale, I'm at about a 45.6. So again, just how you can look at all your information in all one spot. You don't need separate metrics to do so, but if you wanted to, you can easily just filter for whatever wholesale account you want, account type, off price, region, whatever you have on your attribute table. I'll show you an example. So we can do, I think my region is full price, or yeah. So I can just filter for my full price accounts and look at all the information that way as well. So it takes out what I had in there for off price. So you can keep it in the same view. You can filter as you go deeper and deeper down, maybe to the levels of the planners. They might be cultivating their own little assortment. And then even further with, because obviously you're not just managing what you're selling on a ticket price, but you have allowances and you're discounting. So we can manage this by having multiples. We've set up, this is the total, but you can have individuals. So things like terms, MDA, royalties, things like that, and plan it by account that way. As you can see here, I have a big jump here for my Macy's, fictitiously, of a discount in my November timeframe. So that might be something I want to look at. How is that impacting my overall margin? And that goes down into your gross AUR down to your bottom line in net sales. So that's how you can roll it up. You can work with your finance team to show them what you're seeing, work with your sales team to see what they're seeing, and break this down even further. This is really just the total company kind of roll up to explore the pricing and the different metrics we use. Before, usually, I'm not showing you bookings in here because now we're going to walk into the process of, well, what is the buying cycle? It's for wholesale. Well, you have markets, right? You come into market, you're kind of creating a revenue plan. You may have one already established, but you're balancing it out with your wholesale partners and figuring out what that potentially could be. Although nowadays, markets are happening after a lot of the inventory is at least bought in some aspect, or at least first delivery and a half, or sometimes more. So you have to make sure that you're doing as much selling in as selling what you have. And that's the process we'll go into now. So normally I'm going to go work with my sales team and finance partners to figure out what my operating plan is. So I can go into again, it's just a different view, all using filters, group buys, just like a pivot table. I'm just saving them as different pieces here. And this might be where I have my filter on for the account type wholesale, division women's, and I'm creating the plan. And I'm showing what my operating plan is here. So you can see on my sales side, I have a forecasted trend. This is my master plan. This is how we control scenarios here. And then the one I've built with finance was my operating plan. This might have been done in the beginning of the year, like an annual operating plan. And I can see how I'm tracking now based on the actuals of 2023 and how that's impacting my 2024. So I can see that my gross sales ticket plan, or let's just call it like my out the door revenue, 4.9 million versus when we first set this up, about 5.7 million. So I can track all my information there, all my variances, where am I making them, what account is impacting it. Again, same metrics going down through pricing. You can review all the stuff. And the good point about this is you also want to let your finance teams and sales teams know that if we may not be hitting the gross revenue or revenue plan, how are we doing on the margin side of business? So that is a really big piece of this, right? You want to make sure after all your allowances and returns. Hopefully you're coming in about the same margin, that you're netting out to a profitable business, not just pushing shipments out. So in this particular case, you can see, yes, I'm lower than my operating plan here from about 14%. My total allowances are slightly lower than what we thought in the operating plan, but are higher than last year. However, I'm having a significant savings on my cost, probably due to product mix, what areas I'm investing in versus my previous year, so that I can go down into my margin and see that, all right, well, I'm making a better margin percent. How are my retail revenue dollars? I'm down. And how's my net margin? So I still have a lot of work to do, but I'm not as far down on potentially my margin dollars as I am on my revenue dollars. Just something to go back and forth with. And then you get into your market prep, right? So now I might be taking this and we make a decision, which plan are we signing up for the Q1 for spring here. And we're going to stick with how it's rolling up currently versus the operating plan. And then we can always do at once for operating plan, or think about where we want to make shifts in the upcoming months to attain that and fill in some of those gaps. But let's just go to a normal schedule that I think probably most of you have seen in some format or another. Walking into a market, I should say pre-meeting, before you get to see the accounts, working with the sales team. Here's my spring 2024. What's my net sales plan? I mean, my gross sales plan or my shipments plan. How is that versus last year? How is that as a penetration of business? Where is it coming from? My bookings. So this is as I start meeting with accounts. This will be flowing in, and I can update my bookings to see how I'm tracking to my revenue plan. My AIR, obviously, same information here, some allowances and costing factors to figure out what my net margin would be and how I'm tracking. So in this particular case, you can also filter by, if you have account managers that handle multiple accounts, you can have that as a location attribute as well, and pretty much have a plan by your AE or sales group or whatever you call your sales team, just by quickly shifting it through, and you can see the account like that, and just re-rolling it up. All right, so after settling in on this and making sure you're letting everyone know that we're planned lower than margin, we may need to make some tweaks here. We're going to come in. You're not just doing pre-market, right? So as you're getting this ready, you're also validating the current quarter we're in. You can easily change this by selecting any of our predetermined timeframes, so that you can do in configuration. You could also select any custom dates, years, or relative. I already went ahead and did so and just called it market tracking. This particular view you'd probably look at before you actually walk into Q4, because you'll want a lot more detail as you're in the Q4. But again, this is just showing you that same pretty much report and getting to the point of where my sales plan is and now versus my bookings. And so what this is saying is my bookings I have a deficit to my sales plan of about 36% overall. So is that, as you generate your KPIs and your business at this point in the month, which is November, is that good enough? If week one was done, should I have all my bookings in, or do I leave a certain percentage open for at once? And you'll know those ratios to whether you think you'll be in a good position or not. And you could also start reviewing where, with those plans, where some of those pitfalls are going to happen. So you can see here in my Macy's, I have potential downside to my last year of 18%. So would I really want to ship out all this to do that, or do I want to try to take less discounts and just not stuff as many goods in there? But you're going to want something a little bit more detailed as you're in your quarter. So this is where we talk about the bookings to go. It's also called a backlog. I mean, in some aspects, I've used this in every single company I've worked at. You come in on Monday, where are we to the bookings? What did we ship out? What's the fill rate from the warehouse versus how much do we have to chase? Which accounts are not pulling their POs in time? Which ones are we at risk for the ship windows? All that fun stuff. So you're going to definitely want to look at more detail, at least month to date. You can break it out by week as well, time group, just for simplification of viewing the screen here. I'm not showing all that information, but you can. So at the top, I have my total inventory, right? A normal piece, but I have it as my BOP plus my receipts. Again, I'm filtered on just my wholesale. So I'm treating this as inventory for wholesale. There's obviously out there, people share inventory across, or it lands in one DC. There's a couple different ways you can handle that with virtual locations, or just understanding which POs are for your wholesale and tagging them that way. But anyway, so my BOP plus my receipts is what I'll have for October. So 14,786 units. I have the dollars are here as well, but I'm going to speak to units just because it's a little easier. I have 6,258 in bookings. Those are in. Who's it coming from? I can see. What is my actual? So October, I shipped actually 2.4% more than my bookings. So what that means is there's probably some carryover from September that shipped out this month and then pushed out the rest, something like that. Or there's just a ship window shift, or we got another order that didn't come in through a booking and then we replenished. And then you have, after that here, I can look at my gross sales and see where my plan is. So for November, week 1, I've shipped out 1,000 units. I have 9.7 thousand units in my plan and only 4,000 in my bookings. So I can quickly call out by looking at my, formatting here of where my bookings fill rate is, or my bookings to sale is. So right now I'm 54% underneath my sales plan. It's okay to look at it versus your actuals, right? When you're looking at fill rate, you're looking at how much of your bookings did you actually ship, but you also need to look at how much of those shipments are short or better than my plan. So that's what your booking to sales plan is going to give you. And you can see that I have across the board here shipments to make up. December, I'm actually not as bad. So is there an opportunity to look at some of these bookings in December, pull them up for November? You know the game. So that's how we can look at that. And then for these deficits where we may not have all the bookings, how do we tell the account executives what they should be selling or what they can? And that's where ATS comes in, right? This is just kind of like, it's by account, but you can blend it all into one thing. Basically, November, we started with 15,000 coming in with the receipts coming in, but we're only going to be selling, we've only sold 1,600 and we have bookings of 4,400. So it's really just your BOP plus receipts minus your bookings for wholesale. And so we have 10,000.8 to sell or to ship it within the month. So that is a bookings to go schedule. And again, you can break this out by week down to, and have a month total, whatever you need to do your business there. Just want to make sure. You just got to make sure that we're, again, that balancing act of what are my bookings, what am I shipping out, and what is my plan, and making sure all those are there. The next piece we're going to go to now is our in-season planning, because as this is going on, a planner is going to be forecasting, reviewing by category, maybe even for certain accounts. I know buying teams are, pretty separate within retailers, but making sure that the planner's understanding the full mix there. So another schedule we can look at is just a typical open to buy view that we have in Toolio, just filtered in for wholesale. Again, you can filter for categories as well. You can have different levels within your group buys to see how you're doing your business. Same sort of thing. I have my inventory. I'm going to be planning my sales, looking at my seasonality. How am I tracking for that? Any kind of overages or underages. So November, I'm planned up 58% higher than last year. And in January, I'm planned lower. But the point here is we wanted to bring in the goods earlier for the holiday season in order to get more time to sell on the floor. So there's a strategy behind all this, and you can enter that in and see how you're doing versus your tracking, where it's coming from, which accounts are delivering that. Down to any level, again, still with maintaining your gross sales. And one thing that you may want to do is save as scenarios and play with some of those percent to totals to see if I get more into my higher margin accounts, how much, if I get like 1% more into there, how much does that drive up my margin? So those are all things you can do within Toolio with playing with your scenarios, playing with your numbers, your inputs and outputs here. And you could also track your bookings as you're going through and forecasting out the future, because you're not just doing the current quarter, you're probably going to be extending this out to 2024, at least through Q2. If you're in market for Q1, you want to see how Q2 is going to be projecting out as well. And then the other aspect of this is what's my on order? What are my receipts? Now, this is for us internally as the brand or the business. How much do I have to buy to meet my sales plan and to meet my bookings? So as bookings come in, you're going to want to revise maybe particular size ranges or size weights on your order. So depending on where you are in the manufacturing process, you may be able to say, well, 60 days prior, they haven't cut the size yet. I'm going to send a new size scale. So all this information can be possible with the help of Toolio. We do that on the item side where we can flow your bookings into your sales if there's no purpose chasing it and you just want to use the breakdown of what the bookings are, which I'll show in a second. Yeah, and then just, normal turns, you're always still going to want to say, like, I got on the wholesale side, I want to turn through my goods pretty quick because, again, I'm not waiting for it to sell to a customer. I'm buying what I should be shipping. And down to your net sales, bottom line. And then the most fun part is now that you've done that, this might be specific for certain planners or certain departments when they're looking and planning out that forward. And now you're going to be teaming up as well. I wanted to show actually in season by category planning. You may not want to be just doing that by account, but let's say you have here, your account is Nordstrom, and then you can have your division, class, department, and see where those trends are. So you can show where the impacts are, why you're above or below certain plans in the same aspect. So not just restricted to account, but going back and forth. And if you had as these as separate merchandise plans or multi-plans, it would just be a reconcile, push my plans into the other, and then you'd be able to see it at whatever level you need to. Okay. Now, this is sort of your glimpse on the quarter. As we know, with wholesale, you do have additional allowances that do happen. Vendor assistance can happen at the end of a season, quarterly, depending on your your agreements. You could have everything. So you're going to want to keep track of the dilution, right, of your margin. This is, again, just set up to see how it looks on the quarter and where it's coming from, because, again, you don't want to just be shipping goods, you want to be shipping profitable. So it's one thing to be over plan or over LY, but how, with all those dilutions and changes and discounts, markdowns, or anything else, how is that hitting my bottom line? So here's a schedule, pretty typical in the world, where you can go down from, what's my at gross shipment plan, then with some of my discounts, markdowns. Again, like I said, we can customize to get more broken out, and you can see what that impact is on your gross sales retail. So that is going to be hours after discounts and allowances. How does that hit our margin? Return rates with wholesale, we know it's not someone's buying it at the store and sending it back to you. It's more about how much of the RTVs, return to vendors, right? They can pile up, they can be big, they can be small, but it's usually, again, end of quarter, end of season thing. So you want to make sure that you're understanding how much of those are coming back, so that you can really see what your net goal is here, your net sales revenue, and your net sales margin, and who is the, for example, who's delivering you the best profit versus the best sales. And you can tweak these to your heart's desire. All right. The good thing about this is also letting your marketing, finance, and salespeople know what the trends are ahead of time, and not just tracking for reporting sake, can help guide of where we need to, right, push the business or create marketing materials for certain categories, speak to other accounts based on the performance of another account without giving, obviously private information, but you can say, in our tier one accounts for our brand, this is how they break out their mix, and they've been successful with that. So is there any, opportunity to get some of this at once in there to get into this new category? But I think you guys all know that part. All right, cool. And now I'm going to quickly show the how we handle the pricing in item plan. Again, this is a webinar kind of scenario, so real high level information, just kind of showing you how it flows with how the workflows are. So if I go into a view and item plan is very similar. If you guys have seen the tool or been to other webinars, you know that we have the same metrics within item plan as we do in merchandise plan. It's just down to the style, color, size level. And you're not going to be managing your plans every out for 2 years down to that level, as things will change, right? So this is more about an in-season for wholesale than too far out. But there are cases where you'll have core programs or deals with replenishment. I know I've done in the past is with Nordstrom, had some great run rates on replenishment goods. And then what we did is we set up a schedule. If they set up the first purchase order, and we had like a guaranteed, a handshake guaranteed flow of how it would go by month, of how much we'd be taking off, and them just keeping us informed of how it's trending. So if they weren't going to be grabbing it all, that we can start working ahead of time and seeing if other accounts or other channels within ourselves, retail or e-commerce, can take some of the stuff that was already cut, and then work with our manufacturers to say, slow down production on this piece. But again, I'm going to be showing you here based on the pricing structure you can do, and you can upload different pricings by account or channel. I can run the same product here on our normal I'm not going to run it right now because I don't want to waste time. So we have to open up for questions, but you can run a forecast based on your channel, your title, your color, and have it blow out. And then you can see that my pricing here is for wholesale, and then on my retail channel, I have it at what I sell it to the customer for. So they'll have different trends, and they'll be gaps per se on wholesale potentially, because there is as you're shipping in, there are people who ship in every week with EDI and all that fun stuff. So this can help track what is the amount you'll be using for wholesale as well. And then out here, I believe starting in week 53, the glamorous week 53, I have to take a cost increase based on how it's coming in. So it's $16.50 I'll be spending on it, and then the price is going up to $34 to make up for that margin. So that can all be handled, not manually. We can ingest it on your product variant table. We have pricing tables, and you can see here just a simple schedule of the channel, looking at the cost and when that start date would be. So you can see how it changed over time and keep logging it. And so from January 21st forward, that's going to be $16.50 and the unit ticket would be $34. Of course, how you're selling it's going to be on the unit cost side and average weighted, because you will still own some at the 16, but just that's how the receipts will be purchased at the $16.50. So all that can be managed down to the account level as well. All right, so that was a lot for sure. I think we can start opening up for some questions, or if there's anything we wanted to focus on now that we saw a lot of those pieces here. I just want to quickly say that we covered, working with the sales teams, the finance teams, and how you can set up your plans and alter your plans and do scenario based that way. Knowing about the product performance, you can tweak your discounts, your allowances, and understand how those are impacting the business. Tracking at once, so you can see how much shipments you've had versus the bookings versus your plan. So at least how can I get out to more specialty stores or get more shipments out the door. No one loves surprises, so it's really good to keep hammering out like, hey, our bookings are right here. Our revenue plan is this. How are we going to make this gap up? And then managing, your own KPIs will be huge benefit, because you'll be able to see, all right, based on looking at these schedules, I can say if I'm 30% of my bookings are in for a month by the first of the month, or in for the quarter by the first of the month, I'm in good shape. If it's lower, I'm at risk of X amount. You can understand what percentage of your business is at once to help talk to, your production teams to understand how much we're buying at risk without contract. And then just your booking to sales by time, like throughout time, you can see on a monthly or weekly schedule of like where your booking should be versus where your shipment plan is. And keeping those in mind, and then having different scenarios so you can plot out how you're doing against those. Sell-in, even though we're shipping it to an account, it's not really sell it in, set it and forget it mentality, right? There's a lot of back and forth, cooperation, and teamwork in order to be successful in there. So it's always good to have this stuff right at your fingertips without having to roll up different pieces. And we've all been there with different systems and just trying to keep it all in sync there. And you can easily pinpoint where your business is, up and down within here, which is great. And then, again, always be working with your entire company. So if you have DPC channels like e-commerce and retail, you can have them also in here, like I showed you on that first, by getting rid of the filters, so you can see how they're penetrating their categories versus how you are, what their margin rates are versus what you are. Obviously, you'd have to normalize that from a wholesale to retail margin. But you can learn a lot from back and forth and working with your accounts that way. All right. So I think I'm done with the overall walkthrough. It's about 1:40, so we should get through some questions.
Well, not many questions have come in. One general question: will the webinar be recorded? Of course, all of our webinars are always recorded. They're sent out after, and they're also accessible on our YouTube page. So public for you to share with your team. And then another question that came in was specifically related to how wholesale planning feeds into AP. That was from a client. So we're going to follow up with that client directly. But just to chime in on that, you can, once you get into the product planning process, plan down to the item level how much of these products are going to each account. That would be done in the assortment planning module. We won't dive into that in much more details today, but that capability is there.
Yep, and then again, same sort of aspect. If you're taking that quarter view of that, whoops, where did I want to go? Market, something like this. In assortment planning, you would be like on your spring 2024, you would have your volume of what you have to hit based on the retail, based on the wholesale dollars and planning to that. So you can see how much is open and how to and then bring that down into the style SKU level. And again, for things that you will be forecasting further than market, that's where you can go into item plan.
Any other specific questions from any of the attendees? One last minute to kind of get these in. Like I said, we'll be following up with the recording. Yes. So one question did come in. Some retailers have customer pre-bookings, i.e. they book a year or more out. Can pre-bookings also be factored into pre-season plans?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, actually, because bookings is whatever you want to define your tables as, right? So you can have bookings coming in, and they could be hard purchase orders for you from your retailers, but you can also have like commitments that come in, and you can tag those bookings as that, so you can see the total volume. If it's down to the style, color, SKU level, and they don't give you all that, but they're giving you kind of an idea of where it will be. You can also do that with putting it in bookings and using like a dummy SKU or a placeholder. So that would be possible. And then again, you can attribute your bookings, and within the master data table, you can actually get like a full on, data log of everything that's in there and do all your filters and grouping by in there. So if you wanted to say like how much of my bookings are hard down to SKU level purchase orders versus how much are uncommitted, potentials, pre-bookings, I should say. So you can do all that by grouping, filtering, and actually look at the numbers, your booking ID or your booking number, and understand that breakout. That would be very important if you're going to include it in your bookings table, because you want to know how much of these are hard orders versus unofficial contracts.
One more question is attribution of commitments versus POs to bookings, configuration, or customization. So bookings tables come out of the box with our wholesale view. So that is just a configuration to get you set up on that bookings table. So those bookings would be your commitments. And then we always bring in purchase orders, but that's your purchase orders as a brand, what is coming in as well. So if you wanted attributions of more than just bookings, then that would be a customization to bring in multiple bookings tables at different phases, whether that's an official booking versus an unofficial booking, but we can also plan those unofficial bookings in the tool.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you can even break out different metrics to say hard bookings versus what, like I said, with Nordstrom, it's a really good communication. They might not sign up for it and send the PO in for fall of 2024, but they're starting to work with you now to say like, this is how many dresses I'm going to need for this time frame. So you can kind of like start thinking about that and putting the assortment together and buying it. However, depending on how detailed your data is and how you're dissecting it, it could be exactly what Lacey said, where we would have separate ingestions or mappers to say, like, if it's Nordstrom, look at the blah, blah, blah table versus this table. But you can also put attributes right within your bookings, if that's possible, from however we're receiving your bookings. So you can, instead of saying like, right, I have my bookings here and I have all this attributes, instead of like saying, I don't know, I don't have many attributes showing here, but instead of class here or subclass, which is on, or supplier, you can have pre-booking versus committed or something like that. And then you would be able to see those as attributes in at least your bookings table and for all your actuals in the tool.
All right, so I think that's it for the questions for today. So thank you everyone for attending, taking some time out of your very busy schedules going into the craziest time of year in retail. Like I've said at the beginning, if you have specific questions or want to follow up and you are a current customer, please reach out to your CSM if wholesale is something you're looking to add to your Toolio instance. If you're a prospective customer, continue to have those conversations with your account executives, and they'll pull in me, Chris, the rest of our training and solutioning team into a call to talk through how this could look for your company. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye.